Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the sixth turn of the Shadow Tech Goddess, subtitled Cat, Part 2, Chapter 4, Selecting a Covus. So in our last chapter, the Library of Time, which incidentally, and this just recently occurred to me, the Library of Time really doesn't have much to do with that chapter. It has more to do with this coming chapter, Selecting a Covus. And in the previous, I don't know why I gave it that name. It's irrelevant. The woman claiming to be the Shadow Tech Goddess leads Aram and Alesta into the workshop of Fiddler Crow, a mystical god of camera, very tall. I always imagined him being around 11 feet tall. I'm not quite sure if he's actually that tall or not. Even though I am the author, even though I did create this character, that's just a speculation on my part. He's very tall. And for some reason, I wanted to give him a special, unique way of talking, but I've already done the voice modulation thing with the autocon and the black hats and with the ghost. I thought I'll just talk in a weird accent, and for some reason I gave him the accent of the Umbrella Guy from YouTube. He's from Tennessee. He's got that Tennessee burr going, speaks very slowly and deliberate, sounding out every phrase he uses. I don't know why I did that. I don't know. I already started it, so I gotta continue in this chapter. Selecting a Covus, we get into extraplanar entities. We've discussed a few already. The Kadar Gamain, who hasn't shown up in the book yet. The Murthig, who is the ghost of Lady Gwendolyn Apprentice. A V-Dogan, a demon, Bella Thouser. And now we come up to a Covus, a very particular type of extraplanar entity, an anomaly of sort, a one-timer that can correct a lot of problems as far as the universe goes. So let's dig in, shall we? Part 2, Chapter 4, Selecting a Covus. Lady Gwendolyn requires her medication immediately, Alesta said, as she and Aram assisted her into the workshop. Gwendolyn was weak and trembling, her eyes lost in confusion. Fiddler Crow came to them and took Gwendolyn. He consulted his timepiece. It's not time yet. He pulled out a chair and carefully seated her. Her eyes looked about the room, staring at nothing. Her mouth lolled open. You see the life she lives, Crow said, tending to her. You see what they did to her. My queen is lost. Will she be all right? Alesta asked. Crow returned to the work table. He didn't answer Alesta's question. The not Shadow Tech Goddess came up. Well, all right is an iffy term, isn't it? She most certainly is not all right. It's well within Crow's power to simulate the person Gwendolyn used to be via sorcery. But that's all it is, sorcery. Without it, she'd be a mindless, angry Grunded rolling around out there in the Grunded Sea. Aram stared at the chart, seeing the tangle of lines Fiddler Crow had drawn. The lines made little, if any, sense. They were a scrawl. Have we made any progress? He asked. Fiddler Crow returned to the chart. Clearly. In this case, the demon has not only murdered the Murthig, it has also acquired the antimatter that I specifically built for Lord Belmont and absconded with it. With the antimatter in her possession, the demon is exceptionally powerful, hence the spiralata it has created. But, the not Shadow Tech Goddess said, taking the amateur will be the demon's undoing. Listen up! The demon is probably unaware that in stealing the antimatter, which was made specifically for Arcade Argamane, she has screwed herself, because her V. Dogan impassibility in time is rendered null in its presence. Bellathauser's impassibility in time is her best weapon. She's been killed countless times by lots of different heroes, but she just keeps popping right back up again. There's always that damn impassibility in time. Now she's got the antimatter. If we can get to her, we can take her out for good. Crow continued. The issue is, per our charting, that Bellathauser has created a parasitic subnode of reality in which she sits as absolute ruler, where, using the antimatter, she is stealing matter from this universe and knitting it into a chaotic new reality. There is no entrance to this subnode. The Hall of Mirrors will not go to it. As she consolidates her power, the node she has created will get larger and more destructive, eventually feeding on this universe until all is destroyed, and possibly taking several others in the process. In order to correct this problem, we must reclaim the antimatter. Once we reclaim it, the subnode will vanish. If, as you say, this subnode has no entrance, how do we get to it? Alesta asked. We burrow and we chart. We create a cataract, and then we may gain entrance to Bellathauser's subnode, Crow said. What he's trying to say is we create a weak spot in the fabric of space and time where we can get into her realm, the not Shadowtech goddess said. She punched a hole into this universe, now we're going to return the favor and punch a hole into hers. And then it's on, and then we take her out cold. And how do we do that? Aram asked. How? With deeds. With monsters, little guy, the not Shadowtech goddess said. With demons. We beat the demon with heroic deeds. And with other demons, fighting fire with fire, as they say. And, Bell is going to have to face these demons? Oh, yes. He is a Kadar Gamane. That's what he's supposed to do, like it or not. What demons? The not Shadowtech goddess adjusted her goggles. That's what we're going to determine right now. Fiddler Crow pointed at the chart with a set of calipers. We must install something truly horrific to create a suitable ripple in the fabric of space and time. Fortunately, per my calculations, Bellathauser's subnode is still new. Just one deadly monster will be sufficient to gain entry. I have a whole cabinetry full of horrors to place. He pointed at an innocent-looking cabinet of cheerful yellow wood at the far end of the room. As Aram and Alesta studied it, the cabinet seemed to shudder slightly, to moan, to knock, to whisper. They could only wonder and dread at what was inside it. Keep 'em, the not Shadowtech goddess said. I have just the thing. From nowhere, she produced a small enameled chest. She opened the lid. Inside was a tiny figurine of a dark, aquatic-looking creature sporting a set of crab-like claws, which she placed on the chart marked by Crow. A cloud of fog spewed from the figurine, soon obscuring it. Two tiny pinpricks of light appeared in the fog, panning about like a pair of eyes. It made a mournful sound, along with a clack, clack, clack noise, which was quite disquieting. This, she said, is a tormented creature known as the Clacker. He's the horror of choice for the punts in their never-ending quest to locate me, the Shadowtech goddess. Whenever they need a monster, they go for him. The Clacker will serve our purposes perfectly. I disagree, Fiddler Crow said. I can think of many more suitable candidates lurking in my cabinet. Can you? She retorted. It will be the Clacker, I insist. She pointed at it. This is the reason I got involved in this venture in the first place. For this creature right here. The little monster on the chart clacked and wallowed in the fog. Its white points of light blinked. What must be done with this entity? Aram asked. Kill it? The not Shadow Tech goddess shook her head. Oh, no, not so easy. It must be saved. Which is why it is not ideal for our needs, Fiddler Crow said. An easier challenge would be simply to kill. The not Shadow Tech goddess gazed at the patch of fog on the chart. Regardless, I'm certain our boy, the Kadar Gamein, will be up to it. So then, here we are. Our piece is set. The path is clear. All we need do now is prevail. Your Kadar Gamein will prevail. He must. I have everything staked on this. Alesta stepped forward. And if I properly understood all this, our Lord Belmont, the Kadar Gamein, our friend, must face the thing in the fog and then enter some sort of horror dimension and destroy a demon? Is that right? Correct, Fiddler Crow said. But Gwen is dead. Belle is alone, probably despondent, in despair. He loved her so. How can we expect him to go off and do these things when his heart is broken? He's going to have to get over it, isn't he? The not Shadow Tech goddess said. He must do these things. Fiddler Crow listened to Alesta and thought a moment. He placed a fresh sheet of vellum on the table. I agree with Lady Alesta. She is quite correct. We must make certain that the Kadar Gamein is fully ready to face the perils at hand. The Murthig is killed, the power he received from her gone. We shall locate a replacement for the Murthig. If the Kadar Gamein's heart is broken, we shall repair it, along with the universe itself. We cannot afford to fail. We shall find another to entrust his soul and ensure our success. And how do you propose to do that? The not Shadow Tech goddess asked. The Murthig's bond to his soul is complete. Crow scratched on the vellum at a furious pace, the page fast becoming dark with his writing. Covus, he said. We find him a Covus to compensate for the Murthig's loss. The not Shadow Tech goddess shook her head. A Covus is asking for trouble. What is a Covus? Aram asked. The not Shadow Tech goddess answered. A Covus is yet another extraplanar entity. Think of it like this. Suppose the Kadar Gamein is a fast, souped-up ship, and the Murthig is a turbo supercharger, making the ship run much faster than it ordinarily would. Remove the Murthig, and the KG will no longer function at peak capacity. In fact, a KG might not function at all without the Murthig. Eliminating the Murthig, Lady Gwendolyn, was a crushing blow, and the demon knew it. But, in theory, the Murthig can be replaced by a person known as a Covus. A Covus is an anomaly, sort of a one-timer in the universal scheme of things. A Covus can restore the KG to full power and beyond, but, and this is a big but, you have to have the right Covus. A bad Covus, a wrong Covus, can ruin everything and seal our KG's fate and ours along with it. Crow continued to write. Then we must ensure we select the correct Covus. Select one? Alesta asked. You mean we here in this faraway place are going to pick Belle's replacement mate for Gwendolyn? Apparently so, the not Shadow Tech goddess said. I don't like that idea. I don't like it one little bit, Alesta said, shaking her head. Where is free will? Where is choice? The not Shadow Tech goddess pointed at the chart. Excuse me. When we took up this little quest a couple of universes ago, free will was one of the things that got thrown out the window, okay? The Murthig is gone. The demon did us on that one, so the KG doesn't get to pick. He's too busy moping around to pick. We pick for him. Crow's right. We need a Covus. And if you wish your friend to have a fighting chance in what's to come, we had better pick a damn good one. Aram watched Fiddler Crow scribble on the page. He wrote so much the vellum spilled down to the floor in a bumpy curl, growing steadily as he added more, the whole thing black with writing. What is he writing? Aram asked. Names, candidates, Covus. From this list, we will pick a name, and then once we've picked one, we must take active steps to steer the two of them together. The Kadar Gawain and the Murthig are drawn to each other naturally, but not a Covus. The Covus owe him nothing. We shall have to intervene on their behalf and throw them together, sort of like a blind date, and that date had better go well. You mean Alesta and me are going to do this? Aram asked. Would you rather I do it? No, absolutely not, Alesta said. If Belle's life is going to be tampered with, and it shall be done so by those who love him the most. Sure, fine, the not Shadow Tech Goddess replied. Once Fiddler Crow is done with the list, you two choose. Make it good. I can't stress that enough. You got me? But how do we know a good candidate from a bad one? Alesta asked. As Fiddler Crow continued his relentless scribbling, the not Shadow Tech Goddess shook her head. Well, that's the whole trick, isn't it? There is no sure way to make that determination, which is why I hesitated when Crow brought up the use of a Covus. You never quite know what you're going to end up with, do you? Crow can determine who is a candidate to be a Covus for our KG, but whether the name on the list is a good one or a bad one, he has no clue. Aram approached the not Shadow Tech Goddess. Then, while we wait, tell us your name. If you are not the Shadow Tech Goddess, what is your name? She considered her response. Then, Aetha. My name is Aetha. I don't know that name. You asked, I told you. Look it up if you want. I'm still a goddess, okay? Just not the one you were expecting. What is your stake in all this, Lady Aetha? Aram asked. Aetha considered her answer. Do you have parents, Lord Aram? Yes. Do you love him? Of course. Then you and I have much in common. That is my stake in this. Eventually, Fiddler Crow was done. He rolled up the vellum into an impressively large scroll and gave the list to Aram. Choose. These are the Covus. Choose well. I cannot do it for you. Whether the Covus helps your friend, the Kadar Gawain, or ensures his death in the end of this universe depends on your choice. I hope that is clear to y'all. Both Aram and Alesta were appalled. I don't think we're qualified to do this, he said, holding the scroll. You have as much insight as I do regarding the selection. I have no devices, formulas, or glimpses into the future to aid me. You personally know the Kadar Gawain and care for him as your friend. Perhaps that care will assist you in making a proper choice. Aram unrolled the vellum scroll. There were thousands of names on it. The vellum was black with them. Alesta was overwhelmed. How do we choose? Crow offered no further insight. He returned to his work with the anatometer. Aetha looked at Aram and Alesta and shrugged her shoulders. Same goes with me. I could pick for you, but again, you know the man, you know his heart. Let that knowledge guide you. Though hesitant at first, Aram was undaunted. Come, I saw a reading room with tables and books, a very pleasant setting to perform our work. Let us go there now and set to this. He turned to Crow. If food and drink could be brought to us, we would be grateful. Aram and Alesta exited the workshop and went to the library room they had seen. It was a great open hall of towering dimensions and scrolled yellow woodwork, lined on all four quarters by books. Shelves went upward hundreds of feet to the indistinct ceiling, all full of books, the spines creating an orderly pattern of vibrant color, like dragon scales. They found a centrally located table. Aram seated Alesta and placed the list on the table. Unrolled, the list was 5 feet long. This is hopeless, she said. Better we shut our eyes, point our fingers, and randomly choose. Aram adjusted his lenses. It's not hopeless. We shall go through every name and determine which is the correct one. They were right. If any must make this choice, it must be us. We will know when we see it. Aram took a fresh sheet and went down the list name by name. He was thorough and meticulous, considering every name. Names he thought promising, he scribbled down on the fresh sheet. Some time later, a tray of food and drinks came floating in. "We are served by ghosts," Alesta said as the tray arrived. "I am no ghost," came a lilting reply. Before their eyes appeared the drifting, somewhat abstract form of a robed woman, the same one Aram had seen before. From a distance she appeared as a translucent, ghost-like figure of a slightly pinkish hue, her rounded face, hairline, and robe vague and mixed together. Up close she was made of drifting particulate matter, like an animated dust on an enchanted wind, creating a partially human form alive with minute movement. "Are you Lady Famila?" Aram asked, interested to speak to this entity. The particles making up her face moved. She smiled. I am a condensation of many people, of many thoughts, given proper order after ages of chaos and fragments of dreams. I have my sanity again, all the voices making up my being working together to provide me with consciousness, though I am, at a basic level, a collection of minute immortal particles. I was rescued from the grunted sea, and now I tend to the library of time and serve the needs of those studying here. This place is a paradise for me. I have brought you refreshments, as you requested. Thank you very much. We are pleased to have made your acquaintance. You're welcome. The whole of time, from beginning to end, can be researched here. The gods have sat in these very chairs, trying to make sense of time itself. I serve them as I serve you now. The whole of time? Can we pre-read the outcome of all of this? Alesta asked, a bit of hope in her voice. Of course. Please, before you ask, I can show you the outcome of your search for the Covus, but not their identity. Then can we save our friend Gwen? Alesta asked. The dust-forming Famila's airy form swirled a bit. The abstract form of her face frowned. No, I'm sorry. The demon that took her life is impassable in time. You will try, but you will fail. Always fail. I will get you a volume of interest. The future is always difficult to discern, even when it is plainly presented. She drifted away. Alesta watched her depart. She was excited. Rami, I think we should try to save Gwen. If the past and the future are available to us here, then we should try. There must be a way. Fiddler Crow and Atha and Lady Famila didn't seem to think that was possible. They're certainly more expert on this matter than we are. Tempting as it is, we should continue with the list. That was the direction we were given. Most of these names I don't know, but mixed in here or there are select names I do recognize. I think we should pick one of those. Why? Just a feeling. Alesta glanced at his list. Alatrix, Lady of Zama. Tentha Semini, attendant of Queen Gome. Grand Dame Miranda of Rosal. Lessa, Lady of Walpole. Christina of Z Enkar, Planetfall. Logan Tom, Charger, Super 6 Brantball Team. Doraline of Knowles, number 40 of the Xandar 44. Madame Tylos of Tusk. Trega the Naked. Krista Morgan, Masthead. Annaline of Carlton. Misty Parker of Kentucky, Songstress. Solbrook of Codis Station. Vrock, Princess of Xandar. Julia of Fountain Lock. And on, Aram's list grew to an enormous length. He continued adding names. Genemax of Wham. Anzafor of St. Mary. Crewman Callie of Anaris. Professor Hannah Ben Sherlamp, EV, University of D. Marie Celebrant of Aldervale Convent. Alifair, the younger of Twill. Camilla, Baroness of Surander. Alesta took note of the last name. Camilla of Surander? Isn't she a Zaffin lunatic who wanted to take over the planet Xandar? Why in the name of creation did you select that one? I don't know. I just thought it sounded intriguing. Aram crossed the name out. Famila returned to their side, carrying a great heavy book in her abstract hands. If I may, Xandar does not exist in this universe, my lady. The Black Hats wiped it out years ago. It is now a shunned place of darkness. Where we come from, Xandar was saved from Shadowtech. I have a book on the subject, Aram said as he continued to add names. Not here, I'm afraid, Famila said. Alesta took note of the book Famila had brought. What is that? Famila set the book on the table. The future, such as it is. Would you care to look? Though I warn you, seeing the future is never pleasant. The book was huge and heavy. Curious, Alesta opened it to a random creaky page. This can tell us the future? Can it help us save Gwen? No. Never clearly understood is the future until it is the past, and then nostalgia clouds the issue. Alesta looked through the book, scrolling through the pages, looking at the pictures. Oh, I see Bell in the picture, she exclaimed. He's wearing his HRN coat and his mask again. We saw that in the fountain in the city square. That is not the Lord Stenstrom you know, Famila said. This image is of the Stenstrom existing in this universe, after the death of Lady Gwendolyn. He is a lost man. He takes solace in his mask and prowls the city streets alone as a lunatic. Alesta looked a bit deeper at the picture. Lord Stenstrom was standing on the lofty rooftops of a city by the sea. He gazed out at the buildings around him. Oh, Belle, Alesta said, feeling sympathy for him. She turned the pages, skipping ahead in the book. Wait, Famila said, alarmed. Alesta looked at the page she had flipped to. She saw another engraved drawing, this time of a bedraggled woman wearing cheap furs and torn stockings lurking in an alley. The woman appeared to be a prostitute of the most foul and desperate kind. Alesta took in her features. Her mouth dropped open in horror. You are a prostitute, Fiddler Crow had said. The woman in the engraving was herself, foul with disease, haggard with the rigors of a hard, sorrowful life. The woman in the engraving didn't look much like Alesta. She just knew it was an image of her. No Aram, no wedding plans, no pilgrims of Marion, no friends, just her, miserable and angry. She just knew. In this reality you never met Lord Aram, or became a pilgrim of Marion. Unfortunately, your life alone has been hard and unrelenting. Alesta sucked in her breath in terror and shut the book. Famila was right. The future was horrifying. I'm sorry. I'm certain that wasn't something you wished to see. I understand. Aram consoled Alesta. Are you all right, Bear? Eyes closed, she nodded. Aram considered the book. Does this tome detail our search for the Covus? It does. But again, it does not reveal the identity of the Covus. Famila flipped through the pages. Here, please attend. Aram saw the full-page engraving scratched out across the vellum. In it, he and Alesta stood on a stormy field of grass and fallen masonry. At their feet, a thin female form lay huddled on the ground in a curled-up position, the ridges of her backbone protruding sharply as if she was badly malnourished. A pile of filthy rags lay nearby, cast aside. Her back was wounded. A great puncture mark near her right shoulder blade dripped a steady stream of blood. Standing next to Aram was the sultry, robed form of a black hat, her face covered with a featureless sash. Nearby, a basin of fire raged. That woeful figure, is that the Covus? Aram asked. It is, yes. Aram stared at the image. He was struck with inspiration. Aram got his disc out. 7 names were there, partially covered up by the newly scrawled name Bella Thouser. Gwendolyn Apprentice's name appeared 4 times, but she was dead. The other names were Tara, Melazar of Caroline, and Cat. He checked the long list of names again, tracing along with his finger, making his way through the scrawl. He stopped. He thumped the vellum with his finger. Rami, what is it? Alesta asked. Did you find something? Nearly hidden amid the sea of names was a tiny, barely readable little scratching. Cat. This one, Cat. Her name is also on the disc. Alesta took exception. Cat. Who is Cat? Aram tapped the engraving. Her. She is Cat. The black hat we encountered once near the ruins of Clovis. And here she is again in the picture. Alesta thought back. The black hat who captured you in Shadowtech? The one who almost killed you? That's the one. Her name appears on my ochre disc as one of the original 7 ladies Belle was to be paired up with. He tapped Fiddler Crow's list. Here's her name, right here. Cat. She is a viable Covus. I think we should select her. Alesta was open-mouthed with astonishment. Why? Who's to say she won't try it again? Perhaps she'll try to kill Belle. If that's the case, we might as well select that horrid Camilla woman from Zaffenspace. From the way Belle told me the story, I don't think she was trying to kill him. I think she was somehow fascinated with him, and she pulled him out of Clovis after the fiery explosion in the depths. Remember that? We've heard Belle talk of Captain Davidge's Countess Sigillis, how she was once a black hat, and then became his loving wife. We've supped with her before, a very enchanting woman. And though he didn't say anything, I think Belle was aroused by this cat woman. He was intrigued by her. And he was very sad when she died later on in Caroline. And here she is, alive and well. I feel she is correct. She had spirit. Alesta shook her head. That list is moot. I'm not comfortable with the thought of Belle pairing up with a black hat. She could lead him to ruin. And she could save his soul, too. I think she's the correct choice. Aram persisted. Bear, I'm certain of it. Alesta nodded and turned to Famila. Great lady, were we to select this black hat, how would we go about bringing her to Belle? Black hats are very dangerous. Steps would have to be taken. Safeguards would have to be prepared. Alesta looked up and down the list of names one more time. Remy, you're sure about this? I am, Bear. Cat is the one. Alesta put her arms around Aram, savoring his feel. All right, then. I trust in your judgment. Cat it is. Famila clapped with her ghost-like hands. I will inform Master Crow and Goddess Aetha of your decision. And with that, we conclude Part 2, Chapter 4, Selecting a Covus. One of my personal favorite parts of the book has Aram and Alesta labor to choose a name from thousands of names to be the replacement for the murdered Lady Gwendolyn. They're right in assuming that Lord Belmont's heart is broken, that he's just a shell of himself. The extraplanar connection between Belle, Lord Belmont, as a Kadar Gawain, and you'll find out more about that designation later on if it's confusing, and with Lady Gwendolyn, who is the Murthig, isn't just one of nostalgia and one of love. It's a physical, tangible, universal connection. The two symbiotically draw power from each other. And with that link, they can both do things they wouldn't ordinarily be able to do otherwise. Lady Gwendolyn always has very powerful gifts. They're always different, but she can do a lot of things that she derives due to her unwitting link to the Kadar Gawain, and vice versa. Her loss doesn't just make him sad; it actually physically depowers him, makes him, just a shell of himself. And as Crow and Aetha, and we find out more about Aetha later on in the story, this enigmatic goddess, whoever she is, tell them that in order to save this universe and get rid of Bella Thouser, they've got to get to her in this horror realm that she's creating that has no entrance or exit, and they're going to have to burrow their way through it. And to do that, Lord Belmont, the Kadar Gawain, is going to need back up to full power, and in doing so, they will provide him with a Covus that will take the place of the Murthig. They have no idea of this list of names who people who could be a viable Covus, which one's a good or bad one? That doesn't necessarily mean that these people on the list are good or bad people. It just means they wouldn't have been compatible, or they would have just like two ships in the night and gone their separate ways, or it just wouldn't have worked out. What have you, all the various doings of relationships between people, and to select a bad Covus, one that just wouldn't work out, would lead them to ruin. So Aram feels that this tiny bedraggled spirit cat, he doesn't know that he remembers her from the Shadow Tech Goddess book 8, where she was a powerful black cat of knife class, very agile. Black hats in previous books usually just stood still and let their Shadow Tech do the fighting for them. People like Captain Davidge and the Duke of Olin figured out tactics around that they could turn against the black hats. So in order to combat this new breed of hero who's actively fighting black hats, they created a new class, the knife class, which is very mobile, very agile. And Cat is a knife class black hat in book 8. Very powerful, very agile, very adept with Shadow Tech, very skilled. And that's the one he remembers. The Cat in this universe is not like that at all. She doesn't have those skills. But we will see going forward how this relates. Clearly, Aram and Alesta now are invested in locating Cat, hooking her up with this guy, Lord Belmont, that the two of them would never meet unless the two of them steer them together. So we'll see how that goes. Next week at this time, we will continue with the story with Part 2, Chapter 5, Buying a Black Hat. And we'll see what doings go on there. Until then, this is Ren Presents. I'm your host, Ren. Peace out.